everybody, today we're going to be going over my October 2025 reading wrap up. This was a crazy good month. This was such a good month for reading, and I am so excited to talk about it because we have 4 5-star books. 4 of them. 4 5-star books. Most of them I have already talked about. Again, I don't think I read too much stuff outside of, yeah, you're gonna have seen everything so far if you've watched all my vlogs. So if you have watched my horror vlogs and you have watched my Romantasy Shop My Shelves vlog, then you know every single book pretty much in this video. But otherwise, if you want to stick around, we're still going to be talking about them. So we also have a little bit of a guest today. There he is. He really wanted to be in here today. Sometimes he wants to be in here, sometimes he doesn't. Today was one of those days that he did want to be here. So he is going to be hanging out back there. You may hear him, you may see him walking around in camera. He does not like to sit still and he does not like to be quiet very much. So you will probably see or hear him at some point. But we're going to get started and we're going to be starting with our DNFs. First up, we did end up DNFing a book called These Dreaming Spires, and it was a NetGalley book. And I have talked about it before. I do believe in DNFing NetGalleys. I treat NetGalleys just like I treat any other book. I do leave a longer review though. For DNFs, I will say what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, ultimately why I DNF'd it, what did not work for me, and what I would like to see in the future from the author, etc. This is a little bit different because it is a short story collection. And I did leave a review saying that I did DNF it because I did not like the dark academia adjacent stories, and I just really didn't feel that way about it. I did not like any of the stories that I read, and I read quite a few in the collection. So I did review the ones that I did finish. I talked about how I didn't feel like it was really a cohesive collection and that I just wasn't interested in continuing reading it. So if somebody likes more outside the box dark academia that to me a lot of times is not dark academia, then you might enjoy this collection, or you might just want to pick it up to read specific authors. Next up, for reading all of my July, I think it's July books, I did DNF the enemy book. Oh gosh, what is it called? The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy. I have it somewhere here, I think. I did end up DNFing that one. That is it came in an Illumina crate. It's one of the stupid Germani, whatever it's called, fan fictions. I don't know that much about fan fiction. I just found out later that it was one. And you know what? I could see it. And to be honest, I really didn't like it. I really didn't like that about it. I didn't like the writing for it. I pretty much hated everything about the book. I don't remember exactly what I didn't like because it wasn't super memorable other than the really stupid humor in it, like the poop jokes and stuff like that in it. I really didn't like that in it. I remember that specifically because I had just DNF'd The Devils the month before for pretty much the same exact reason. So if I was going to DNF The Devils for that reason, I'm going to DNF The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy for that reason as well. And then the final book that I DNF'd this month is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This is a huge surprise. This is a massive surprise because I've liked every single horror by T. Kingfisher. I think the closest that I got to DNFing or not liking was a 3.75, and that was the, oh, good, what is it called? I have it right behind me. House with Good Bones. That is the closest I've gotten to not liking one of their horror books. This wins. This would have been a 1-star if I finished this. I think I got to 50% of this book and I decided not to finish it because I hated generally mostly everything about this book. I didn't like the plot. I didn't really care for the characters. I didn't like how it was written, which is wild because again, it's a T. Kingfisher book, but I just didn't like anything about this one because this one is following a very similar situation to The Hollow Places, but instead of what's going on in The Hollow Places, this one has these like weird idols, these weird like things, like are they like rock it's been a while since I DNF'd. It's like the first thing I DNF'd or first thing I attempted to read last month, but it's just like weird rock things, and there is like an alternate world, but it was really strange, and I ended up reading the end of the book and I'm really glad I did not continue pushing through it because I did not like the end of this one either. I did unfortunately end up DNFing The Twisted Ones, which I'm really sad about because I don't keep books that I don't like, so this is not gonna go in my collection of T. Kingfishers. All right, we are moving on to books that we actually finished and we actually rated, and we are starting with our 1-stars. We did have one 1-star this month. You guys probably already know because I've talked about it a couple of times. It is Misery by Stephen King. I'm not gonna go into detail. I have a whole vlog if you want to know thoughts and spoilers and things about that. I just generally didn't like anything about this one. And it's not that big of a surprise. I've been on a journey to try and find a Stephen King book that I enjoy. I really didn't like anything in this. I thought it had a lot of problems in it. I'm kind of surprised it's the classic that it is. But again, I'm not going to get into this if you want to fight me over this one, I would definitely go to the other video. Although I don't really fight about books. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. It's kind of how it is. Reading is very subjective. Still love the movie. Next up, we have a 2.5. This one was tough to rate. I think I was between a 3 and a 2 a lot of times. So I ended up settling for a 2.5, and that is The Hounding. This is following an interesting set of characters because the book is about a group of girls who are supposedly potentially turning into dogs, but that is not who you are following in the head of. They are the focus of the story, but it's not who you're actually following. You're actually in 3 or 4 different perspectives. One, like, they're all different villagers and how they are viewing the girls who are actually the focus of the book. It's a very interesting concept. I don't think it worked because it did not go far enough. It did not take it in a horrific enough direction, and it ended up feeling almost like a weird romance toward the end of the book, which I think definitely downplayed what this book should have been. And it wanted to be this really amazing feminist story of like a mix of The Crucible and like The Scarlet Letter. It wanted to be that, but it did not take it nearly far enough to really have that gut punch that you want out of a story like this. So unfortunately, this did not work, especially the ending. The ending was really bad. And so I think this could be rewritten in a way where this story is a 5-star, but it needed to be done almost more like aggressively. Like, it just needed to go further with what it was trying to do. Also in my horror purge was Titan of the Stars, and this was a 3-star. This was fun. It was fun. It was Alien and The Thing meets Titanic, and that's a pretty good comp. Like, that's the story that you want to read. It's following our 2 main characters. Our engineering character is actually the female character, and our more Titanic character side of things, the romantic side of things, is actually our male character, which I thought was a really cool gender reversal. And it really is just like Titanic meets Alien and The Thing. That's all there is to it. Next up, we had a 3.75, I think. I'm very confused about what I want to rate this, but we're going to stick with 3.75 for right now, and that is Conform. This is a brand new sci-fi fantasy dystopian romantasy release. I don't really know exactly what genre this is. It is dystopian. I just don't know if you'd classify this as fantasy or sci-fi, or even really need to. It's in my romantasy vlog because I thought it was a romantasy, but it definitely falls more along the lines of like romance dystopian, which is really strange. So I think it can fall into romantasy, but it's following our main character who is in a very much situation like The Handmaid's Tale. So this is a post-dystopian world where the ruling faction decides what everybody else is doing, and there's even hierarchies within the ruling factions that you can fall from grace and end up in these lower levels of people. And there are like breeding programs, and you're supposed to act certain ways, and it is very, very Handmaid's Tale, very trigger warning heavy. It's not as bad as Handmaid's Tale, but if you have any type of trigger warnings about people talking about getting other people pregnant for these types of breeding programs, that is definitely what this is about. It's not heavy with SA at all as far as this first book goes, which is definitely different from The Handmaid's Tale, if you've ever seen that. Don't know about the book for Handmaid's Tale. This is all me referencing that TV show. So anyway, I give it a 3.75 because I don't necessarily think it's a good book. I don't think it's super well written. I actually use Silver Elite as a comp for this book. So if you enjoyed Silver Elite and are okay with the not so great writing and not so great plotting, but you're just there for kind of a fun time, I would pick this up. Otherwise, I wouldn't think too much about it. Next up was in my horror video of reading 5-star predictions, and that is Widow's Point. And this is a solid 4-star. I'm like between a 3.75 and a 4-star, I think, because every time I think about the ending of this book, I'm like, I kind of wish it had ended a little bit differently, but that's just my preference for horror books, which is not common in horror books, which is why I don't read a ton of horror books year round. So this is a really fun one. We're following a group of characters. So this is actually split up into a novella and then a novel afterwards. So in the novella, you're following a single character who is going to this lighthouse. And in the second novel section, you're following a group of like YouTubers and ghost hunters kind of people also going to the same lighthouse. And there are connections between the 2 stories, which is really cool. And it is all about a haunting, and it is told in found footage format. So I would 100% recommend reading this one physically. Normally, I would say found footage is better off with audio, but the audiobook is not formatted in a way that is found footage friendly. It is not like a full cast kind of thing like what episode 13 was. Episode 13, masterful audiobook. Book not so great, but the audiobook was really well done. I'm hoping eventually this book gets popular enough that it does get kind of a production like they did for episode 13. So that's kind of my hope, and then I would love to read it that way. But as of right now, if you're interested in this found footage book, I would physically read this one. Next up, also for that 5-star prediction video, is The Possession of Alba Diaz. I am so happy we have moved away from the Vampires of El Norte. This is a solid 4-star with the capability of being higher if I reread it. I think I was burnt out a little bit on horror by the time I had gotten to this one. So I do want to reread this one because I do think it could be closer to a 4.5 to a 5. Now that I know exactly what is happening at the ending, because I think that was my other problem, is I wasn't sure what direction it was heading, and I was also really nervously reading it because of Vampires of El Norte. So I think knowing that it is good and it is to my taste in horror, I would like to reread it to see what my brain thinks about it upon a reread. So this is following our main character, Alba Diaz, who is part of this like kind of wealthy family. So they end up going to this mine, and that's kind of where she meets this little attractive boy, but she is engaged to somebody else. So she ends up dealing with being possessed, and she ends up having to ask for help from the hot guy that she's attracted to, but not betrothed to. So it is like, there is a romance in this. I feel like all of her books have a romance that is a theme. I think this one does a better job of balancing the romance and plot compared to Vampires of El Norte, which was primarily romance. I like this one. I think it's good. If you like The Hacienda, I would try this one. Then we are down to our 5-star books. I have 4 books left. I am so excited to talk about them. I did put them in order of how I feel about them. The first 2 are kind of tied, so oh, I don't know. I think I'm gonna switch them like this. Okay, yeah. Okay, so first 5-star, the lowest of the 5 stars, but still a solid 5-star, is What Stalks the Deep. This was so good. This is such a good 3rd book in the series. The best one, in my opinion, of the series so far. This is in the Sworn Soldier series. This is T. Kingfisher. Funny how I had a DNF and a 5-star in a single month for T. Kingfisher. This was also in the 5-star predictions video for horror, and I can't really talk about it too much, but it is following our same characters from the first 2 books in this series, and it's just a short little novella. I think this is phenomenal. I think this combines the best aspects of the first book and the second book into a single book, and I love that. It combines the really good plot from the first book with the better writing from the second book, because the writing was a little bit iffy in the first one, and then the plot didn't work as well in the second one. So I love that this was the best of both worlds. So fantastic. I would obviously recommend this. Next up, we have one that was from the Horror Purge, and that is Reluctant Immortals. I loved this. I loved this so much. It is exactly how I felt about The Haunting of Velcoed by the same author. And this is like horror adjacent. Again, Haunting of Velcoed is also horror adjacent. It's more like grief horror, where you're learning who you are, finding your power, healing from trauma kind of horror situations. So this is following our main character, Lucy, and it is following our other, she's not exactly a main character, she's a side character, but she's very important to the story, B from Jane Eyre. So Lucy is from Dracula and B is from Jane Eyre, and it is talking about them trying to survive, and they are literally reluctant immortals. They do not want to be in the situation that they are in, and they are constantly being haunted by the men that put them in the situation in the first place. So it is all about them taking their power back, understanding what happened to them, why they have been dealing with this trauma for so long, so many years. It takes place in the 70s, which I thought was a really interesting timeline to actually put it in. And I think it worked really well because the 70s is kind of known as like the cult years. There's a lot of cults that popped up in the 70s, and that was an aspect of this book that I really appreciated. And so this was just so good. It was so good. It made me cry multiple times. I would highly recommend it to somebody who likes this more grief horror type of thing. I just think this is a phenomenally done book, so I was very happy with it. Then we are on to our last 2, and obviously the higher of the 2 5-stars. Ooh, okay, so beginning of the month, we read A Dance of Lies. This is a book that I started reading last month. It kind of ended up being in October. This was for reading all of my July books, and this was the obvious winner of that video. Like, this was such a good book. I was so excited that this was such a surprise. I almost skipped this one. Because it does have chronic health rep. But yeah, no, this was totally worth it. It was so good. It's following our main character who was a like dancer, and something happens where she ends up being thrown into prison, and she ends up having a lot of chronic pain due to what happened to her in that situation. But she gets removed from prison and is told, hey, you got to do this thing for the king. And so she ends up having to be a spy at this big court event thing, and it just goes from there. And there's a really interesting romance. I do like the romance. Yeah, I can't wait for book 2. I can't wait for book 2. I'm really excited. I most likely will end up rereading this one before book 2 because even though this is a 5-star, it is still a little bit of a generic fantasy where like there's some things I can't remember. I just think it was done really well, where I would probably need to reread this before the next book. And then my favorite book of the month, and potentially tied for second favorite of the year, a shock to everybody, is Quicksilver. What? What are you talking about? I still am in shock about this book being so good, or me just liking it. Like, I get why people didn't like this. 100% get it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it so much. I cannot believe how good this was for me. I love Kingfisher as a character, so this is probably her main character, Saris, and she is a human dealing with this very corrupt world, barely surviving, taking care of her brother, and she is just on her own. And it takes a giant turn when she ends up going to this Fey realm. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say, because I didn't know for a second where this book was going until about halfway through, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. I am shocked that I loved it. I feel like this is gonna come to as a shock to all my subscribers who talked about it, because so many people are like, you're not gonna like this, you're not gonna like this, the sex scenes in it. But to be honest, I didn't think they were that bad, but I think that's because I've read A Court of Silver Flames. That was way worse. There is nothing that I've read so far that has been as bad as that one. This really only had 2 massive scenes that were very easy to skip over. So I love the plot. I loved the characters, loved the side characters, loved the main characters, I loved Kingfisher. I mean, I loved everything about this book, minus how long the sex scenes were, but you know what? If I can skip them, I can skip them. So anyway, yeah, 5-star. Cannot wait for Brimstone coming out in like 3 weeks. So that I'm gonna be reading it the second it comes out. So I loved this. This was a great reading month. This was a great reading month. It was primarily 5 and 4 stars. It was absolutely crazy. So I am just really excited for November, because I feel like I have a lot of momentum going into November, and I am just very excited to continue reading. So anyway, that is everything that I have for you today. Definitely let me know what you guys read in October, what you got to, if you had any 5 stars, 1 stars, whatever you want to talk about. If you want to let me know that you're here but you have nothing else to say, then leave a... Let's see, I feel like I've done a butterfly and I've done a sword before, but that's kind of what's happening here. So I guess let's stick with the butterfly. So either a butterfly or a moth, whatever closest adjacent to that, leave that emoji in the comments down below if you want to let me know that you're here. Make sure to subscribe to miss any future content. We have book unboxings coming. I got 4 stacked up right there. I'm waiting for 1 more, and then we'll be able to do that. And that should be coming soon, relatively soon. And make sure you liked it if you enjoyed it. And yeah, that is everything I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.